Growing up, there was a lot of things that I did not understand, and questioning was not the answer. Like, you couldn't question anything. You couldn't question, if I as a human being, as a person, as an individual, if I had got an understanding, a clear understanding of why things were the way that they were, then I could, I probably could have rationalized with it better. But with the answer that I got as it was, well, if you're not obedient to the man of God, then you are condemned. And it's
how are you supposed to learn anything this way?
Like, wait, I'm confused because, I look back, even if you look back in the Bible, just biblically, and like look at like everybody that has gone through the struggle, and it's like, God has given them time and he let them come back. Okay, you're not, let me say it again to you. Okay, you're not getting it. How long did they preach in the day of Noah?
The disciples of Jesus weren't perfect at all, like when they got started.
It's like people want you to get it like that and understand it as soon as they say it and not question why they said what they said. And it's like, no, I'm human first, and I'm going to always question, especially now as an adult, like why people put these parameters on me as an adult. So, with that, growing up, in the church, and having those rules and regulations, and the very things that they say to you, if you don't follow them, you're being disobedient, and disobedience is a sin. So it's like, well, either way, I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. So like, what do I do? It's kind of like you were just there. Like, nobody gave you any clarification. So that's one thing I just did not like. I did not like that. And and it's like, whenever you're trying to find who you are and where you fit in at, and people constantly just tell you that, and then it's like, well, you got to watch and pray. And it's like, okay, I still don't understand, but nobody's making it clear to me. Like, no,
I think part of it is, a lot of the church leaders, and I'm speaking generally, grew up in an era where you didn't ask any questions. You need to follow directions so you don't get killed, so you can just survive.
Sounds like a plantation to me.
They don't give you the grace and space to learn. And we grew up in a different era, where we needed to know a little more, because the dangers, there's obviously still dangers, but they weren't as like in your face. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna step outside and just die. Usually on a regular day, you don't got as many dangers, to face.
We were sheltered, so it's like, we were so sheltered that we couldn't see none of that. That's what I'm saying. Like, no clarifications were ever given. Like, I was so sheltered to the point where, like, a lot of things that a lot of people, like my husband's like, he's like, oh, you didn't do what when we were doing this X, Y, and Z at that age. And I was like, I was still playing with Barbie dolls when I was 14. I didn't know anything about sex.
And I think that kind of thing is interesting, because you got to be like a healthy balance of the two worlds. Because on one hand, you don't want them so exposed before their brain is even developed of what they're dealing with. But then on the other hand, you don't even want to be unaware of the demons you're trying to fight off. Like, if demons coming at you, you don't even know what they are. You never heard of them. You don't know what they can do, because you're walking around blind, and you've never heard of some of the things that's coming at you. So it's like a healthy balance that has to be created of the two.
So I kind of want to interject my truth in this situation, because regarding this particular topic, it's kind of a little bit different. The reason why I say that is because in terms of exposure to the secular world, I didn't have a lot of filter.
Oh, the
Parents,
secular world. Did you just call it the secular world?
the secular world, my realm, secular world. I didn't have a lot of filter on it because my dad, he wasn't going to stop his media inputs and his actions just because I was around. What my parents decided to do instead was to teach me how to deal with the world. Like, hey, this exists, and this is a way to process that. The reason why I say it's a little bit different is because my dad was a PK, and because of his church hurts, we didn't go that often. We went like Easter and funerals, being honest. So it wasn't until I was a young adult that I even started to go to church regularly to even get in the culture of things. A lot of the hymns that people know just because they grew up with, I don't know. I don't know the words. I would make up stuff at church. Anytime I went with a friend, I had friends that would go. They would invite me to come to church. I'd be there and I would just make up words to the hymns because no one could hear me anyways. Cause I was just singing along and whatever. It wasn't my reality with things, and so my experience, because I'm 34, my experience in the church is only maybe 14, 15 years old for real. Now, we would pray at home, but honestly, like, because of my dad's church hurt, he kind of kept me away. That's how I was sheltered from the church, but not the rest of the world. So I was watching, R-rated movies when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, watching, Nightmare on Elm Street type of stuff, whatever it was on. It didn't matter. But this conversation's more, it's newer to me than, say, some other topics we discussed. It's a different type of reality for me than, say, with Sherelle, who grew up from, the beginning with this. It's a different type of thing. I just wanted to share that so y'all know where I'm coming from. That's all.
I know me and Hillary just had a conversation not too long ago about, when we were talking about, because a friend of mine that I grew up with in the church, she had a breakdown. She had a mental breakdown. And when I spoke with her, and this is where me and Hillary had came up with the idea. When I spoke with her, and she was telling me that, because of the way that we grew up, and not really we grew up in the church, so we didn't learn coping skills. We didn't learn how to deal with life, because we were so sheltered. We were sheltered from the rest of the world, so we didn't grow up learning these things. So she had said to me, she was like, I didn't know what to do. She was like, I was always taught to just pray. Whenever I had something that was going on with me, I was to pray. I was to go to my pastor. I was to go to talk to him if something was wrong. I don't go to anybody else. I go to him. And if I want to go to somebody else, then I have to ask my pastor if I can go to somebody else and talk to them about what's going on. So it's when she told me that, and then I was thinking about how things go on now, and sometimes how my first coping is to pray. And I didn't know at the time anything else until I went and sought therapy for myself. I had to seek therapy from a portion of my upbringing. I'm not going to say the whole thing, because I'm grateful the way that I grew up, because it made me who I am. But, I'm looking at it as, because of the shelteredness that I had, and she brought that to my attention, just thinking back, that's where it's at. I don't feel like we got the whole separation. like the outside life. Like we just got church, we didn't get real life.
Yeah, like there was definitely a disconnect with the application. So on one hand, you're singing these songs, you're learning these scriptures, you're hearing these sermons, and it is something to resort back to, is something in memory to remind you of what to do. But there's no real focus on practical like application. Like if I'm at the grocery store and this person cuts me off with their cart, how as a Christian, how am I supposed to correctly handle that? If I'm called a nigger, whatever, if it's just a real life situation, how am I supposed to handle that? Of course I'm gonna pray, because that's just a natural thing that I do. But I need to see some people who are Christians, real practicing, or at least, you know, and at least in my case, because I'm a Christian, I need to see you applying this and you telling me how. This is why I really love TD Jakes a lot, because he can break down the Bible in a way that I really understand it in a practical way. I like his preaching style, but that's one huge thing why some people don't have like those coping skills, because it's a lot more that can be added to your prayer and adding action to your prayer. And then I wanted to mention something else. Wait a minute, Brandon. There's a such thing as toxic positivity. And that's something that I would notice and still notice a whole lot with some of my, like, I don't even want to say just some of my peers, but with some church folk, is this toxic positivity where you act like nothing's wrong, where you pretend like everything is together because you know Christ, or because you go to church, or because you're affiliated in these groups. When you're really going through something, you pretend as if it's not. When they ask you, you say you're fine. There's a toxic positivity there sometimes when you're not being, because you're not being honest. When you're broken, you're not telling the truth. You're not telling your peers because you're trying to save face, or you're still showing up and you're still preaching and you're still giving when you have nothing to give sometimes, when you need to really just be sitting down and receiving. Like, I think all of that plays a role into church hurt as well.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's just rough. Like, I think some of the stuff is rough.
They don't allow you to be unapologetic, and they don't allow you to be vulnerable. Like, now I'm reaching a place where if I'm not all right, I'm about to just tell you I'm not all right, or just keep it real. Like, you know, I already know I know who I serve, so I know the end result. I'm gonna be cool, but today, I'm not okay today. And
which is
if
very
I'm
important.
not okay today, I'm gonna tell you if you ask and you really
very important. So before we ask if you're okay,
I'm okay right now.
Right.
But I'm just saying.
So part of this I want to ask, and this is with contradictions within the word. In the situations you mentioned earlier, I mean, do you do the eye for an eye, or do you do the turn the other cheek? Like, how does that work? All right. What? Sherelle, the question was for you. You left.
Oh, the question is for me. You want to know in those situations, what do I do?
Yeah, so I guess the question generally was about contradiction, which does bring a lot of confusion with how to handle situations. And you were talking about getting clarity on, how to handle those situations. So what do you do when there's contradictions? Because I feel that leads to a lot of uncertainty and a lot of doubts when it comes to what to do with the teachings of religion, whether it is eye for an eye or turn the other cheek.
You have to do more research and look at the context in which.
But what do you do when you're not allowed to ask questions?
That's why I'm saying we live in an era where we have information in the palm of our hand. So we got to look at the context in which some of these scriptures were written. Why did this person say, in this moment, eye for an eye? And then why did this person say in this moment, something else? What you have to do your research. And now we don't have to only rely on that minister that may not even have been able to read, or maybe that may have not had much life experience. We don't have to only rely on that anymore. We have resources in the palm of our hands going forward. Yeah. And then we also, if you have a relationship with God, you can hear him speaking to you.
Oh man, that's the most powerful, kind of scary situation though. Like, and it's also awesome. Like, it's this weird situation where you've asked a question and you've gotten an answer. And however you receive that answer, that person or situation may not even know that's an answer directly from the source. It's a weird thing. I don't know if y'all experienced that or not, but I have.
Yeah. What about you, Hillary?
What was the question again?
Ask God, he'll tell you.
No,
what would Jesus do?
We were just talking about, like, well, I had brought up the whole thing of like we didn't have a healthy balance between like real life.
Like applying
right.
the word to everyday life application.
Right. Listen, so some of these religions are, and some people don't like this word, but they are cults.
Woo!
They
preach.
Gotta go.
Yo, your whole microphone clipped just now, Alicia. Like, your microphone shut off.
Did it?
I know Sherelle heard it. Ooh. Your microphone shut off. You clipped just now so hard.
Can y'all hear me now?
I can hear Hillary, yeah, but Alicia just completely clipped. But she went cough.
That's what they are. They're cults. And when you really think about it, a cult it's an organization, and everybody is the same in the cult. They follow a leader. The leader instructs them on what they're supposed to do. Everyone is supposed to do the same thing. And then everyone only does what the leader says.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Catholicism, gotcha.
Right. So that's what it is. Because it's not when we are called, when we are chosen, it's not in relation to a group. It's not in relation to a specific number of people. It's individual, because when you have your relationship with God, and in the end, when you have to answer to him, he is not going to ask for the Church of God in Christ to come forward. He's not going to ask for Baptists to come forward. He's not going to ask for Catholics to come forward, Presbyterians. He's not going to ask for the group to come forward. You is who he's going to ask to come forward. Therefore, the idea that in order to make it to heaven, or in order to live saved, or in order to be godly, lies within a specific religion, that's not true. That's cultish.
So, all right, I got a question for you, Hillary, because I have my own thoughts on this. What do you feel about the mega churches?